Hey crew, thanks for submitting your color theory research into the artists that I preordained. Um, Regarding the assignment, there was an overarching theme, which ironically is the central thesis that I would be able to pinpoint that ran through everyone's submission was a lack of addressing the thesis that each artist was exploring through their work. So I figured it'd be a worthwhile taking a moment to address why understanding the thesis or the central theme that an artist is exploring through their work. So, oftentimes art history addresses an artist's production through terms that are loosely defined, such as like style, right? The way something looks, and then also through like personal biography of the artist who is doing the making, right? These are very, very easy tactics to use when discussing the artistic output. Style allows for similar artists to kind of be paired together, and as a result, you can easily write a chapter about these series of artists that make things that look similar, whereas maybe the motivations behind each artist are remarkably different. I think it's very, very easy to state, and I'm sure that all of us have experienced, that just because something looks similar doesn't mean that it is similar. That is a very quick way that people make the mistakes of stereotyping. And stereotypes are not a very effective or productive way to navigate the world. It takes a lot of effort to push past stereotypes. And in this sense, biographies often can do something similar, right? They're very enticing. We only ever read biographies that are engaging. So when you're looking at, Charles Birchfield or Amy Sherlin or Jacob Lawrence, Milton Avery, any of these people, the biography part of their narrative is always the really engaging stuff. You don't ever read about how, Charles Birchfield preferred, milk in the morning, right? Because it has no content and it's not relevant to anything, right? So those personal narratives, you can get rid of the boring stuff, talk about the really engaging stuff, but it really, it's very infrequent that it's a direct correlate to what their artistic output is, right? What they make, unless their work is specifically autobiographical. And if it's autobiographical, then of course the biography is remarkably important. So, getting back to the thesis at hand, what is the importance of the thesis, right? The thesis in artistic output is the central theme that the artist is working through. At no point should an artist think, I need to come up with my style, right? Because a style is a dead end. Just because you can make something look a way doesn't mean that it's necessarily interesting, right? And just because you can make something look a way, it really does not provide you the subject matter that you need to include in order to make it look that way, right? Does that make sense? The subject matter is best thought of as a tool. The tool being, let's think about this. Obviously, if you're making a painting, for example, you need that painting to have content. Oftentimes, representational imagery uses a subject matter, right? When you're trying to come up with, subject matter, typically speaking, what makes you make the decision of what's included or excluded is an idea. The idea is the central theme. Now, if you look at any of the artists that I provided you as baseline research, right, there is a central theme that extends through all of their work, right? So Charles Birchfield, for example, started off their career making representational imagery. A lot of it was like architectural in nature, and then eventually led to all of that work developed into pictures and depictions of nature. Nevertheless, there was a central theme that was driving Charles Birchfield to make the work that Charles Birchfield was making. And that central theme is what directed Charles to select this subject matter over that subject matter. There is a reason why Charles Birchfield was not making politicized paintings. There's a reason why Jacob Lawrence is not just painting sunflowers. Does that make sense? There is a reason behind why these artists choose the subjects that they choose. Based on the motivation combined with the subject matter then makes you decide, or makes these artists decide, how to address them formally, right? If Jacob Lawrence was merely concerned, the only concern was making really elegant portraits, the style that Jacob was working with would have been different. It would have been more naturalistic, heavier in layering. It would have looked more like a photograph, right? But the motivations that were driving Jacob Lawrence's work were largely racially and segregationally dependent. It was a black and white world, literally. Everything was flattened and reduced, right? And if you look through the style through which Jacob produced his work, everything is flat. Everything lacks dimension. It is a black and white world that is full of color. That style was selected after Jacob had a life experience, and that life experience led to a thesis, and that thesis is what drove Jacob Lawrence to decide how to make the work that Jacob needed to make. The thesis is utmost important, and I think, the way that art historians teach art unfortunately sets up future makers or active makers to think that style is the epitome of all good, right? Style is purely an access point for a viewer to enter into work and then hopefully think about the thoughts that the artist intends you to think about. We as the makers are directing a viewer to think a certain set of thoughts over another set of thoughts. And the thoughts that we want the viewer to look at are enveloped in the thesis. So if I sent you feedback, please just read through it and then resubmit your research, and please try to address what is the thesis that the artist was working through. What is the central set of ideas or the central set of questions that the artist has, and why are they making the work that they are making? Not what is their, I don't care where they grew up, right? Unless it's important. Oftentimes it's not. And I don't really care how the work looks in the end, right? Because how it looks, again, is secondary to what their thesis is. So if I sent you feedback, please just get that work back to me. Don't feel overwrought about rewriting anything. Just address the issues that I included in the email. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or concerns, or If you would like to schedule a one-on-one meeting so that we can dig into this idea, the central thesis idea, a little bit more, please let me know. I'm here.